Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars through the main window. The New Dawn was one of humanity's finest exploration vessels, and today it carried a special mission. They were heading to the Zentari homeworld. For what should have been a celebration 300 years in the making. "Captain, we're getting close to Zentari space," said Commander Ryan Brooks from his station. Ryan was a good soldier, the kind of man Jake trusted with his life. Next. To him, Dr. Lisa Carter was checking her scientific equipment one more time. Lisa studied alien life forms and had been excited about this trip for months. Jake nodded and pressed the communication button. "This is Captain Morrison to all crew. We'll be arriving at the Zentari homeworld in 2 hours. Remember, this is a diplomatic mission. We're here to celebrate humanity's 300 years as part of the Galactic Council." The Galactic Council was made up of 12 different alien species, and humans had been members since 2087. It had been a good relationship. Or so everyone thought. The aliens helped humanity learn about space travel and new technologies. In return, humans shared their own discoveries and helped with various projects across the galaxy. Jake had been to many alien worlds during his 20 years as a captain. He had made friends with creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking plants, but they all seemed to get along well with humans. "Captain, I'm getting a message from Ambassador Helen Davis," Ryan said. "She's already on the planet waiting for us." Helen had been humanity's main representative to the Galactic Council for over 20 years. She was smart, tough, and always fought for human interests. Jake trusted her completely. "Put her through," Jake said. Helen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked worried, which was unusual for her. "Jake, I need to talk to you privately." "When you get here." "Something doesn't feel right about this celebration." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "I can't say much over this channel, but I've been hearing strange conversations between the alien delegates. They stop talking when I come near. Just be careful." The screen went dark, and Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He had learned to trust his instincts over the years, and right now they were telling him something was very wrong. 2 hours later, the New Dawn landed at the main spaceport on the Zentari homeworld. The planet was beautiful, with purple skies and silver trees that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Thousands of beings from all 12 council species had gathered for the celebration. Jake, Ryan, and Lisa walked through the crowded streets toward the main celebration hall. Everywhere they looked, aliens were talking and laughing together. But Jake noticed something odd. Whenever humans approached a group of aliens, the aliens would become quiet and move away. "Are you seeing this?" Ryan whispered to Jake. "Yeah, I see it," Jake replied. "Stay alert." They found Helen waiting for them outside the celebration hall. She looked even more worried than she had on the video call. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "Follow me." She led them to a small room away from the crowds. Once inside, she locked the door and activated a device that would prevent anyone from listening to their conversation. "Helen, what's going on?" Jake asked. "I've been here for 3 days," she said. "I've been listening and watching. The aliens have been having secret meetings without any humans present. I managed to record one of their conversations." She played the recording. The voices were speaking in different alien languages, but the translation device made their words clear in English. "The humans have become too dangerous," said a Zentari voice. "Their technology advances too quickly. They make friends too easily with other species. They are disrupting the natural order," said another voice that sounded like it came from the Korthax species. "Soon they will be more powerful than any of us. The plan must proceed tonight," said a third voice. "Once we give them the ultimatum, they will have no choice but to submit." Helen stopped the recording. "There's more, but you get the idea. They've been planning something against humanity for years." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "What kind of ultimatum?" "I don't know yet, but we're about to find out. The main ceremony starts in 1 hour." Lisa spoke up for the first time. "This doesn't make sense. We've been allies for 300 years. We've helped them with dozens of projects. We've shared our technology freely." "Maybe that's the problem. Ryan said grimly. Maybe we've been too helpful. Jake activated his communicator and called his ship. New Dawn, this is the captain. I want you to monitor all communication channels. If you hear anything unusual, contact Earth immediately. Yes, sir, came the reply. The 4 humans made their way to the celebration hall. It was enormous, big enough to hold thousands of beings. Representatives from all 12 council species were there, along with hundreds of humans from various colonies on Earth. The ceremony began with speeches from each species leader. They talked about friendship and cooperation. They praised humanity's contributions to the galaxy. But Jake noticed that the alien leaders kept looking at each other in ways that seemed planned. Finally, the Zentari High Council leader stood up. His name was Vorak, and he had always seemed friendly to humans before. We have gathered here today to mark an important moment in galactic history, Vorak said. For 300 years, humanity has been part of our council. But times change, and we must change with them. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. Humanity's rapid growth and technological advancement has created an imbalance in our galaxy, Vorak continued. Your species forms alliances too quickly. You innovate too fast. You ask too many questions. This makes you unpredictable and dangerous. The human delegates began looking at each other with growing alarm. Therefore, the Galactic Council has decided that humanity must accept new terms for continued membership. You will surrender all advanced military technology to Council control. You will disband your independent armed forces. All human colonies will accept Council peacekeepers to maintain order. And all human research will be supervised by Council scientists. Helen stood up. This is not what we agreed to. Humanity has always been an equal member of this council. Times change, Ambassador Davis, Vorak said coldly. You have 1 hour to accept these terms. If you refuse, the council will take necessary action to protect galactic stability. Jake's communicator suddenly came to life with urgent messages from his ship. He listened with growing horror as his crew reported that human colonies across the galaxy were under attack. Defense systems that had been built with alien help were failing. Weapons that had been jointly developed with alien allies had stopped working. The attacks have already begun, Jake whispered to Helen. Helen stood up and faced the assembled council. Humanity rejects your ultimatum. We trusted you, and you have betrayed that trust. Vorak smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. The damage is already done, Ambassador. Your colonies are defenseless, your fleets are scattered. You have no choice but to submit. But as Jake listened to more reports coming in, he realized that Vorak was wrong about one thing. The aliens had destroyed much of what humanity had built, but they had not destroyed the human spirit. And they certainly had not destroyed everything, from hidden bases and secret research stations that the Council had never known about. Human voices were already coordinating a response. The betrayal was complete, but humanity's story was far from over. 3 months had passed since the betrayal at the Zentari homeworld. The galaxy felt different now, colder and more dangerous. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, sat in a secret meeting room deep inside Luna 7, a hidden moon base that the Galactic Council had never discovered. Around the table sat the survivors of humanity's leadership. General Patricia Stone commanded what remained of the human military. Dr. Kevin Hayes ran the Emergency Science Division. Engineer Maria Lopez worked on humanity's most secret projects. President Nathan Clark had barely escaped from Earth before the alien forces arrived. Give me the numbers, Kevin, General Stone said. Her voice was tired, but still strong. Dr. Hayes stood up and activated a holographic display. The numbers that appeared made everyone in the room feel sick. 47 human colonies destroyed completely. 2,300,000,000 casualties. Our main fleet scattered across 12 different star systems. Most of our major cities on Earth are under alien occupation. Jake stared at the numbers. Each one represented thousands of families, millions of dreams that would never come true. What about our defensive capabilities? Nearly gone, Hayes continued. The aliens had been planning this for decades. Every defense system we built with their help had hidden weaknesses. Every joint project included secret shutdown codes. They could turn off our weapons with the push of a button. President Clark leaned forward. But they didn't get everything, did they? Hayes smiled for the first time in months. No, sir. They missed our black projects. The research facilities they didn't know about, the ships we built in secret. And most importantly, they missed Project Exodus. Maria Lopez activated another display. This one showed technical drawings that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. For 30 years, we've been working on this in complete secrecy. We call it the Quantum Tunnel Drive. What does it do? Jake asked. It takes us beyond the galaxy, Maria said simply. Not just to another star system or another part of our galaxy. It opens a tunnel through space itself to reach other galaxies entirely. The room went quiet. The idea was so big that everyone needed time to understand it. You're talking about leaving everything behind, General Stone said slowly. Everything is already gone, President Clark replied. The question is whether we stay here and fight a war we cannot win, or whether we take our people somewhere safe. And build again, Dr. Hayes brought up another display. We've been gathering intelligence for the past 3 months. The Council has overwhelming advantages. They outnumber us 50 to 1. They control most of the galaxy's resources. And they've had 300 years to study our weaknesses. But we know their weaknesses too, Jake said. We've been their allies for 3 centuries. We know how they think and how they fight. That's true, General Stone agreed. We could hurt them badly if we chose to fight, maybe even win some battles. But in the end, they would destroy us completely. President Clark stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars filled the black sky. Somewhere among those stars were the remnants of human civilization, scattered and hiding. I've made the decision, he said finally. We're not going to fight. This war, we're going to leave. The room erupted in arguments. Some people wanted revenge. Others wanted to find a way to negotiate. But President Clark raised his hand for silence. Listen to me, he said. Fighting them would make us just like them. We would become conquerors and destroyers. That's not who we are, Maria Lopez spoke up. The Quantum Tunnel Drive is still experimental. We don't know what we'll find on the other side. We don't even know if we'll survive the journey. How long do we have to prepare? Jake asked. 18 months at most, Dr. Hayes answered. Our intelligence suggests the Council is still searching for our remaining bases. Eventually, they'll find us. Then we have 18 months to accomplish the impossible, President Clark said. We need to gather every human we can find. Every ship, every resource, every piece of technology that might be useful. General Stone nodded. I'll coordinate the evacuation. We'll need to contact the scattered fleet elements and the hidden colonies. What about allies? Jake asked. Surely some of the alien species didn't agree with the Council's decision. Dr. Hayes brought up a new display showing several alien faces. We've identified 2 species that tried to warn us. The Corvani are miners who work in the outer systems. They're tough and practical. The Ashari are peaceful traders who never liked the Council's politics. Some members of both species have contacted us, Maria added. They want to join our exodus. They're willing to leave everything behind, just like we are. Jake felt something he hadn't felt in months, hope, so we won't be completely alone. No, President Clark said. We'll have friends with us. Good friends who proved their loyalty when it mattered most. Over the next several hours, they planned humanity's greatest undertaking. Every detail had to be perfect. They would need ships of all sizes, from massive colony vessels to small fighters. They would need supplies for a journey that might take months. Most importantly, they would need to keep the operation secret until the very last moment. We'll call it Operation New. Dawn, President Clark announced. After Jake's ship, which brought us the first warning of the betrayal, Jake felt honored but also overwhelmed by the responsibility. How many people are we talking about? Every human we can find, General Stone said. Current estimates suggest we can save about 800 million people if everything goes perfectly. The meeting continued deep into the night. Plans were made for gathering supplies, contacting scattered human groups, and preparing the quantum tunnel drive for its first real test. Everyone knew the risks were enormous, but staying in the galaxy meant certain death or slavery. As the meeting ended, Jake looked around at the faces of humanity's leaders. These people had lost everything but had not given up hope. They were planning to take their entire species on a journey to another galaxy. It was crazy, impossible, and absolutely necessary. "One more thing," President Clark said as everyone prepared to leave. "When we reach our new home, we need to remember this moment. We need to remember what happens when people trust too much and prepare too little. We must never let ourselves be this vulnerable again." Jake nodded. The lesson was clear. Humanity would survive, but they would never again be naive about the universe around them. The damage was done, but from that damage would come wisdom and strength that would serve them well in their new home among distant stars. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the greatest fleet in human history prepare for departure. 15,000 vessels of every size and shape floated in space around him. Some were massive colony ships that could carry millions of people. Others were small fighters designed to protect the fleet. All of them were filled with humans who had lost their homes but not their hope. "Final count, Admiral," reported Commander Ryan Brooks. 783 million humans aboard the Exodus fleet, plus 200,000 Gvorvani and 50,000 Ashari allies. Jake nodded. It was fewer people than they had hoped to save, but more than they had dared to expect 3 months ago. Every person on these ships had given up everything they knew for a chance at freedom in another galaxy. The largest ship in the fleet was the Pioneer's Dream, commanded by Captain Amy Rodriguez. Amy was a tough woman who had spent 20 years running cargo ships between human colonies. Now she carried 3 million people on a vessel that had been converted from a mining platform into a mobile city. "Amy, how are your people holding up?" Jake asked over the communication system. "They're scared but determined," Amy replied. "The children keep asking when they'll see their grandparents again." "I don't know what to tell them," Jake understood. None of them would ever see their old homes again. The Galactic Council had made sure of that. But maybe, just maybe, they could build something better in their near home. Dr. Maria Lopez was working frantically in the engineering section of Jake's ship. The quantum tunnel drive was humanity's most advanced technology, but it had never been tested on this scale. Opening a tunnel big enough for 15,000 ships to pass through would require perfect timing and enormous amounts of energy. "Maria, are we ready?" Jake asked when he found her in the engine room. "As ready as we'll ever be," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The drive systems are operating at maximum efficiency, but Jake, I have to be honest with you. We don't know what's on the other side of that tunnel. We might emerge in empty space, we might emerge inside a star, we might not emerge at all. But staying here means certain death or slavery," Jake replied. "I know, that's why we're going." The Exodus fleet had been traveling for 6 weeks, moving slowly toward the edge of the galaxy. They stayed in empty space between star systems, hoping to avoid detection by Council forces. But their luck was about to run out. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple ships approaching from 3 different directions," Ryan announced. "It's a Council fleet, at least 200 vessels." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Council had found them just days before they reached the galactic edge. "How long until they intercept us?" 4 hours, sir." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Send a message to Commander Troy Bennett. Tell him it's time to implement the diversion plan." Commander Troy Bennett commanded a group of 50 fast attack ships. These vessels carried volunteers who knew they were probably flying to their deaths. Their job was to delay the Council fleet long enough for the main Exodus fleet to escape. "This is Bennett to all diversion ships," Troy broadcast. "You all know why we're here. Our families and friends are depending on us. Today we show these aliens what happens when they threaten humanity." The 50 human ships turned away from the Exodus fleet and flew straight toward the approaching Council forces. They were outnumbered 4-1, but they had something the aliens didn't expect: absolute determination to protect their people. The battle was fierce and brief. Troy's ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and then disappearing into asteroid fields and nebula clouds. They destroyed dozens of council vessels, but they were slowly being overwhelmed. "Admiral Morrison," Troy's voice came over the radio, distorted by damage to his ship. "We can't hold them much longer. You need to make the jump now." Jake looked at Maria. "Can we do it?" "The tunnel drive is charging, but it needs 10 more minutes." "We don't have 10 minutes, Ryan said, watching the tactical display. Troy's voice came through again, weaker this time. "My ship is badly damaged, but we're going to make one final run at their command vessel. Tell my wife I love her." The communication went dead. Jake watched on his screen as Troy's damaged ship flew straight into the largest council vessel, causing a massive explosion that destroyed both ships. "The tunnel is ready," Maria announced. "All ships, prepare for quantum tunnel jump," Jake broadcast to the entire fleet. "Follow the Pioneer's dream through the tunnel. Do not stop. Do not look back. Our new home awaits us." The space in front of the fleet began to shimmer and bend. A massive tunnel of swirling energy opened, leading to somewhere beyond the stars. The tunnel was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like a doorway to another universe. Captain Amy Rodriguez was the first to enter the tunnel with her 3 million passengers. "This is the Pioneer's dream entering the quantum tunnel. All systems normal. See you on the other side." One by one, the Exodus ships disappeared into the swirling energy. Families pressed their faces against windows, watching their old galaxy fade away forever. Children who had been born among these stars would grow up somewhere completely different. Jake's ship was among the last to enter the tunnel. As they passed through, he felt the strangest sensation, as if he was being stretched across impossible distances. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, filled with colors that had no names and sounds that no human had ever heard. Then, suddenly, they were through. Jake looked out at a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The spiral arms of a new galaxy stretched out before them, glowing with the light of billions of suns. It was the Andromeda Galaxy, humanity's new home. "All ships report in," Jake commanded. One by one, the ships of the Exodus fleet confirmed they had survived the journey. 14,736 vessels had made it through the tunnel. They had lost some ships in the crossing, but most of humanity had survived. "Admiral," Amy Rodriguez's voice came through clearly, "we're detecting several star systems with planets that could support life. It looks like we're going to have plenty of room to spread out." Jake smiled for the first time in months. They had done it. They had carried nearly 800 million people across the void between galaxies. The damage that had been done to them in the Milky Way was behind them now. Ahead lay the chance to build something new and better, but even as he celebrated their survival, Jake knew the real work was just beginning. They had to find habitable worlds, establish colonies, and create a new civilization from scratch. Most importantly, they had to make sure they would never again be vulnerable to betrayal. The Exodus was complete, but humanity's greatest adventure was just starting. 6 months had passed since humanity arrived in the Andromeda Galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Horizon, their first permanent colony built on a planet with blue oceans and green forests. The world reminded him of Earth, but the 2 moons in the sky and the strange purple flowers that grew everywhere made it clear this was somewhere completely different. "The morning reports, Admiral," said Captain Amy Rodriguez, who had become the colony's first governor. She had traded her starship captain uniform for simple work clothes, but she still carried herself like someone used to command. "How many people do we have planetside now?" Jake asked. 2,400,000, Amy replied. "The Pioneer's dream finished unloading last week. Most families have temporary shelters, and we're building permanent housing as fast as we can." Jake nodded and looked at the construction reports. Everywhere he looked, humans were building. They built homes, schools, factories, and farms. The Corvaniolais were especially helpful with the heavy construction work. Their strong bodies and natural engineering skills made them perfect for building the foundations of a new civilization. Dr. Lisa Carter had set up a research station near the colony's edge where she studied the local wildlife. The planet was full of strange creatures that looked like nothing from the Milky Way. Some looked like birds with 6 wings. Others looked like fish that could walk on land. All of them were peaceful and seemed curious about the new arrivals. "Lisa, have you found anything dangerous?" Jake asked when he visited her laboratory. "Not dangerous, but very interesting," she said, showing him images of the local animals. "These creatures have never seen anything like humans before, but they're not afraid of us. It's like this whole planet is welcoming us." President Nathan Clark had established the new Human Federation government in a building at the center of New Horizon Colony. The government was different from the old one back on Earth. Every major decision had to be approved by representatives from all the different colonies they were planning to build. "We can't make the same mistakes we made before," President Clark explained to Jake during one of their regular meetings. "Back in the Milky Way, we trusted too much and prepared too little. Here, we make our own decisions and depend only on ourselves." Dr. Kevin Hayes had built new laboratories where human scientists worked on developing better technology. But this time, every piece of technology was designed and built entirely by humans and their alien allies. No outside help, no shared projects, no hidden weaknesses that enemies could exploit. "We're making good progress," Hayes told Jake during a tour of the research facilities. "Our new defensive systems are more advanced than anything we had in the old galaxy. And since we built them ourselves, we know exactly how they work." The Ashari allies had proven invaluable in helping humanity establish trade routes between the different colony ships. Their natural ability to navigate in space and their peaceful nature made them perfect ambassadors for the growing human settlements. One of the Ashari leaders, a being named Quellen, often met with human leaders too. Discussed their progress. Quellen looked like a tall, thin human covered in silvery fur with large eyes that seemed to see everything. "Your species adapts quickly," Quellen told Jake during one of their conversations. "In 6 months, you have built what would take most species years to accomplish." "We had good teachers," Jake replied, thinking of the Corvani engineers and Ashari navigators who had helped them so much. But life in Andromeda wasn't easy. Engineer Maria Lopez faced constant challenges, keeping all the colony ships running while they established permanent settlements. Food was sometimes scarce until the first crops could be harvested. Medical supplies ran low until they could set up manufacturing facilities. "Every day brings new problems," Maria told Jake, "but every day we solve them. That's what humans do best." Jake had to smile at that. Even in this strange new galaxy, billions of miles from home, humans were still the same stubborn, clever people they had always been. The biggest challenge came from space itself. The Andromeda galaxy was bigger than the Milky Way, with more stars and more planets. Long-range scanners detected signs of other intelligent species, though none had contacted the human colonies yet. "What do we do when we meet them?" Amy asked during a council meeting. "We're friendly but careful," President Clark decided. "We share basic information about ourselves, but we keep our advanced technology secret until we know their intentions." "And if they're hostile?" Jake asked. "Then we're ready for them," Dr. Hayes said confidently. "Our new defensive systems can protect every human colony. We'll never again be caught unprepared." As the months passed, more colonies were established on other planets. Each one was different, adapted to local conditions and resources. Some were built underground on desert worlds. Others floated on the oceans of water planets. All of them were connected by regular supply ships and communication networks. Jake often thought about the people they had left behind in the Milky Way. Sometimes, late at night, he wondered what had happened to Earth and the other human worlds under alien occupation. But then he would look out at the bustling activity of New Horizon Colony and remember that humanity's future was here now. The children born in Andromeda would never know the old galaxy except through stories. They would grow up as citizens of the stars, learning to build and explore and discover in ways their parents never could have imagined. One evening, Jake received an unexpected message from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. The technician on duty looked excited and nervous at the same time. "Admiral, we're picking up artificial signals from the direction of the Milky Way," the technician reported. "But they're not from the Galactic Council. The signal patterns are different." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "What kind of signals?" "It's hard to tell at this distance, but it looks like distress calls. Multiple species, all broadcasting on emergency frequencies." Jake stared at the data streaming across the screen. Something was happening back in their old galaxy, something that was making different alien species call for help. "Keep monitoring those signals," Jake ordered, "and prepare a full report for President Clark." As he walked home through the streets of New Horizon Colony, Jake wondered what those signals meant. Were the species that had betrayed humanity now facing their own crisis? Were the oppressed peoples of the galaxy finally fighting back against the Council? Whatever was happening back home, Jake knew that humanity was no longer the weak, trusting species that had been so easily betrayed. They had learned hard lessons about survival and self-reliance. They had built a new civilization based on strength and wisdom. The damage that had been done to them had made them stronger. Now the question was what they would do with that strength. 5 years had passed since humanity first arrived in the Andromeda Galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison, now older and with gray hair, stood in his office looking at reports from 12 thriving human colonies. Each world was unique, each community was growing strong, and each day brought new discoveries that made their new home feel more permanent. "Admiral, the council meeting is ready to begin," said Dr. Sophie Williams, one of the brilliant young scientists who had grown up during the Exodus. Sophie had been just 16 when they left the Milky Way. Now she was leading research projects that amazed even the older scientists. Jake walked into the council chamber where the leaders of humanity's new civilization gathered each month. President Nathan Clark was still in charge, but he looked tired from the enormous responsibility of leading nearly 800 million people in building a new society. "Let's start with the good news," President Clark said as the meeting began. "Our population has grown to 820 million people. Birth rates are up, death rates are down, and people are optimistic about the future." Captain Amy Rodriguez, now governing 3 different colonies, gave her report next. "Food production is exceeding our needs on all worlds. We're starting to build up reserves for the first time since we arrived. The Corvani mining operations are providing all the metals and minerals we need for construction and manufacturing." Dr. Kevin Hayes presented the technology reports. "Our new defensive systems are fully operational on all 12 worlds. More importantly, our young people are developing innovations that surpass anything we had in the old galaxy." Engineer Marcus Chion's new propulsion systems are twice as efficient as anything we've built before. Marcus Chun, another young genius who had been a child during the Exodus, stood up to explain his work. "We're not just rebuilding what we lost," he said. "We're creating something completely new. Our technology is purely human, designed by humans, for humans and our allies." Jake smiled at the confidence in the young man's voice. The children who had grown up during the journey to Andromeda had a different attitude than their parents. They weren't afraid of betrayal because they had never trusted blindly. They weren't bitter about the past because they had always known this galaxy as their home. "What about the signals from the Milky Way?" President Clark asked. "Are we still receiving them?" Dr. Hayes nodded grimly. "The signals have gotten stronger and more frequent. Our best translation computers have been working on them for months. The messages are coming from multiple species, and they all say basically the same thing." He activated a holographic display showing the translated messages. "The Galactic Council has collapsed. The member species are fighting each other. Some worlds have been destroyed in the civil wars. The surviving populations are asking for help." The room went quiet. Everyone remembered the species that had betrayed humanity 5 years ago. Now those same species were suffering and calling for assistance. They're also asking specifically for us, Hayes continued. Some of the messages mention humans by name. They want us to come back and help them rebuild their galaxy? Jake felt mixed emotions. Part of him wanted to help people who were suffering, even if they had once been enemies. But another part of him remembered the 2 billion humans who had died because of the Council's betrayal. Dr. Lisa Carter, now running the Xenobiology Institute, spoke up. I've been studying the local species in this galaxy. We're not alone here, but the intelligent species we've detected seem to be peaceful. They're curious about us but haven't shown any hostile intentions. That's because we've been careful, President Clark said. We've made contact slowly and shared only basic information about ourselves. We haven't repeated the mistakes we made in the Milky Way. Sophie Williams presented her most recent discovery. Admiral, I found something interesting in the ruins. On the fourth planet of the Helix system, there's evidence that another species went through an exodus similar to ours but millions of years ago. She showed images of ancient structures that had been built by beings who were clearly not from the Andromeda Galaxy. They came from somewhere else, established colonies here, and eventually became part of this galaxy's natural development. They suggest that forced migration might be a common pattern in how galaxies evolve. What happened to them? Jake asked. They thrived, Sophie replied. Their descendants are still here, but they've become so integrated with local species that you can barely tell they were originally refugees. The discussion continued for hours. The question facing humanity was simple but difficult. Should they return to help the Milky Way? Should they stay focused on building their new life? Or should they find some middle path? Finally, President Clark called for a decision. I propose that we send aid to the Milky Way, but we don't go back ourselves. We'll send supplies, technology, and knowledge to help the suffering populations. But our home is here now. Jake stood up. I agree with the President. We can help without sacrificing the safety and future we've built here. We'll show them how to rebuild, but we won't rebuild for them. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would help their former galaxy, but they would do it from their new home in Andromeda over the following months. Supply ships began the long journey back to the Milky Way, carrying medical supplies, food, and technical information that could help the war-torn species rebuild their worlds. The ships also carried a message from humanity. Jake helped write. That message. We have not forgotten the damage that was done, it said. But we have chosen to build rather than destroy, to help rather than seek revenge. We hope you will learn from our example and create a better future for your children. The response from the Milky Way was immediate and grateful. Species that had once considered humans dangerous now called them saviors. The technology and supplies sent by humanity helped end several civil wars and begin the process of rebuilding entire worlds. But humanity itself remained in Andromeda, building their new civilization among the stars of a different galaxy. The children born in this new home grew up knowing they were part of something special. They were the descendants of people who had faced ultimate betrayal and chosen hope over hatred. Jake often walked through the streets of New Horizon Colony. In the evenings, watching families go about their daily lives, children played games in parks built on an alien world. Parents worked in factories and farms that fed an entire civilization. Teenagers studied sciences and arts that would help them explore and understand their new galaxy. The damage was done, Jake would say to himself during these walks, but we didn't let it destroy us, we let it teach us. On his final night as Admiral, Jake made one last entry in his official log. We came to this galaxy as refugees, he wrote. We stayed as builders. We became the people we always had the potential to be. Not conquerors, not victims, but helpers and teachers and friends to any who would accept our friendship honestly. Jake looked up at the alien stars that had become humanity's new home. Tomorrow, a younger person would take his job and continue, leading humanity forward. But tonight, he was content knowing that the species he loved had not just survived their greatest, trial but had emerged from it stronger and wiser than ever before. The damage was done, but from that damage had come humanity's greatest triumph.